Alright, this is a game in the AMX 50B, the Tier 10 French Heavy. It's got a pretty good clip, decent gun handling, good gun on it. It doesn't really have very much armor. It's particularly vulnerable to getting shot in the turret. And this is a game on Stalingrad, and I don't really particularly play super well, especially early on in this game. I'm a little bit too passive. But there's a number of things that I feel like you should point, that I wanted to point out from this game, and we'll sort of go over those on as they come up. And so what I like to do generally is play through the middle area here, particularly in the 50B. I don't like to play on this west side here. It's too easy for them to get set up, especially if they have big tank destroyers where they can just be in a position where you have to basically poke out and get shot, punched in the face by them. And so I always look and see what our team is doing. See, our E5, M103 are coming over this way. We've got our E50 here as well. That's actually a pretty decent setup. The rest of our tanks are going to the west. Particularly some of our light and medium tanks are going to the west. That's not usually that helpful going out there. But that's what they do. And so I'm going to take up a pretty conservative position, so I'm going to go up through here and play the back side of this wall here, because I don't have any light tanks or anything to see out to that field side. I do have optics on this tank when I play it in pubs, so I am going to go peek these lanes. These are not lanes you want to totally sit in, but these are lanes that I'll use just to detect to see if something slow comes across. Right. So what I'm looking for is if something slow comes across through here, we'll get one shot, and we don't need to clip, just one shot and just get out. At the very least, it gets us some intel. See how we're moving? So our guys up here, this E50M next to me, and this E5 is moving out west. So this E50 is going to basically can watch this lane for me. I need to make sure that we don't get pushed through our back, because we don't have anybody out here on this side. Our guys on the west are set up. We know where their E3 is. The E3 is not in a super good place to affect a whole lot. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm more concerned about them being able to push up around this outside over here. And especially see how their artillery shot at our M103. That means this M103 got spotted by something. Whether it's a medium tank or a heavy tank or a tank destroyer. I think there's one of their T-30s, or the T-30 is out here. It's a trap! And that's a situation like that shot on the T-30. Like, his gun wasn't pointed at me. Like, I was just lit for him. Probably at the same time he was lit for me, but he didn't target fast enough. That was something where if I saw that he was already targeting me, I would have just pulled back. I wouldn't have tried to get that shot. But since his gun was not targeting me yet, I could basically get a little snapshot there. And then see how they're starting to get below us, and this is bad. You don't want to be in this position where they start getting below you, because they're going to start getting into these positions where they're going to be able to start getting flank shots in you, especially if they start pushing in through here. And if you look at our western configuration, we don't have a super great western configuration either. They're kind of pretty far back, which is okay for holding these guys in place, but we've got a lot of weight over there, especially since the E5 came off of this east side and started heading west through this middle area here. So we've got a bunch to deal with, and so we have to start thinking, if you're the guys on this side, of what your escape plan is. This E50 has to start thinking about what his escape plan is. This Leo PTA needs to start thinking about what his escape plan is. This artillery back here needs to start thinking the same thing. And so what I want to be able to do is I want to protect the backside of this E50 if I can. I want to make sure that he doesn't get pushed through here. He can watch his own front. They have to come up a little ramp in order to get to him. And so I just want to be sure that he's got nothing behind him. I know that they've got some tanks over here, but their west side is pretty locked in place at this point as well. This 50B is starting to push up on these guys, so that's something that we're sort of keeping an eye on. And this 1375 comes through right when I turn. It's a trap! And this is starting to be less and less of a good position. They've got an IS-3 out there that's shooting at me. Right, and so we're starting to lose this side. We lost our E50. And so I need to clip, and I need to start getting my exit plan, because I'm starting to become enveloped here. So our PTA and M103 are close together, which is good. It's a trap! But they're starting to be in a position where they're going to be pushable. Their 1375 is into our back lane. And I kind of want to see if I can save these guys, but they've got a lot here, and it's going to become progressively more difficult. They're pushing their 50B after our PTA. Unfortunately, their 50B is kind of fixated. And I'm clipping, so I've got no alternatives here. I can't really help that PTA. He's gonna die before I get reclipped. So I need to get off of this line before these guys push through here too far. Right, and we're still stalemate over here. We're sort of pushing up a little bit now, but it's a little bit too late. At this point, now is not the time to push because you know you've already lost this side. And I need to get out of here before these guys start catching up to me. They're basically trying to encapsulate me. The 30 and the WZ-120 are pushing me, so I need to get as far off this side as I can. And so at this point, what I want to do is I have to give up map control on this east. And so what I want to do is shrink this down, but make it so that they have to push across an open area in order to get to me. Our team probably won't pay attention. I don't remember exactly. I'm going to start spamming defend the base because I want them to understand that we've lost this backside, and that's going to make them extremely vulnerable, especially to getting cross shots from across over here and getting potentially backdoored. Right, and so I'm just running. I'm literally just running away here. And spamming defend the base. And so I can't really help our artillery if he doesn't move. If the artillery moves forward a little bit, I'll help him. But if he doesn't, if he just sits there the whole time, there's nothing I can do to prevent him from being lit. I can go over here and try to slow down these guys as they pass through here. But that's about it. The only dangerous part about this particular position that we're in is that it's really easy to get hit by artillery here. But otherwise, we get pretty good coverage of this base, and they have to come in through here someplace. We've got so our teammates are over here, but they're not really paying attention. They don't really understand what's happening in the base, particularly this E5. It would have been really easy for him to come back through here and play strong through here, where these guys really could have just held position. So we're the only real tank that's playing the back here, so that's something that we have to keep in mind, especially when you're a clip tank, because while you're loaded, you're a dangerous tank, but while you're reloading, yeah, not so much.
It's a trap!
And so their E3 is pushing through here, our E5 wrapped around through the back, but we've still got some problems there. The E3 can light me through there, but he won't really get good shots. I'm more worried about artillery. So their 30 is pushing me. He's got a stock turret though, and he obviously doesn't know my reload position. So I need to take a chance here. I need to try to get this guy clipped out because I can't let him dance here, because that's going to end up screwing me more than it helps me. So we're able to take them out, and then so when we look at the end configuration, right, their T-30 is coming across here, and that's, as I said, that's going to create problems for these guys on this line, which is why these guys should have probably not have moved up there. They should have sat a little bit further back. But you'll notice that our guys in the beginning of this map were camping a little bit further back, and then once we lost this side, they moved forward a little bit, and they basically moved forward into a more vulnerable area. And so it's going to be difficult for me to push around through this west side because this JPE is in this lane. It'll be really easy for him to cover it. I have to hope that the E5 can beat the IS-3. This T-30 is vulnerable, so when we look at this configuration, right, every single tank is that they have is still on the map. We know where they are. The JPE is still in the same general area. We know the IS-3 is currently lit. The T-30 is currently lit. The two other guys are artillery. And so when you look at this, what you see, or what I see, is that the best option is to take this T-30. This T-30 is ISO'd. He's on a cross here, right, where you can pick him up from a number of different angles. So I just need to reload and get to a point where I can take him out. These guys are obviously locked in place, but I need to try to get to a position. So what I really want to avoid is the situation where they can get all of their tanks together in the same place. So we see that JPE has been pushing up on that west side. He lights me as I exit. And their 4043 is able to get our E5, which is fine. And so the T-30 may or may not know that I'm coming up over here. I was lit. I'm dark by now. I could have also come up through here. I want to get to a position, and then you'll notice that I do not get lit right there. So I know that he's headed west, and so I need to catch this guy because I can't allow them to start conglomerating their tanks together, because that's what's really going to be killer.
It's a trap!
And we're able. I was looking to track him there, and I just want to get off the plane of the JPE. So I know the JPE is pushing this way. I can get behind here and be relatively already safe. I know that their IS-3 is probably going to push around. So these two guys are together, and there's not going to be a whole lot that I can do about that. But I need to get away from this where this JPE is at right now. And so I know where the IS-3 spotted me through, oh, not spotted me, I spotted the IS-3 through this little broken fence there, but you can't actually drive through it. So he's actually ISO'd. I know the JPE was headed east on this G line. At least initially, at least it looked like he was. But there's also a chance that he could have gone down here through Cap. And so what you want to do, or what I always say that you should do is especially in a situation where you're outnumbered, you need to try to catch somebody in a bad spot. And so the best candidate for this is actually the JPE 100, because when you look at how much health I have 1500 health, so I know I can get to take a hit from the JPE if I need to, but I might not need to, depending on where he's at. And they know that my last known location was in this area when I took down the T-30. And so what you want to do is you never want to be in the same place where they think you are. I know that sounds pretty straightforward, but you always want to try to loop around and be someplace attacking from an angle that they don't really expect. And so I don't want to camp over here and just try to spot this JPE 100, even though I do have optics, right? And that's sort of the benefit of having optics on these tanks. I am able to spot that IS-3. I'll be able to pick up the JPE at ranges where they don't have a similar advantage. So what I want to do is I want to come back through this cap, because what I figure is one of two things will happen. The JPE will push towards the cap, and I may have to take a shot from him in order to kill him, but if I can get to his side, then that will be worth it. Either that or he keeps pushing east on this G line, in which case at least I'm off of that line and coming through from a side angle, so he won't have necessarily an easy shot on me. And if I don't spot him on either one, then what I'll do is I'll just loop through and come back, all right, because they sort of have the initiative here, and I can't overplay my hand. I need to be someplace where I can cover the angles through which I'm going. And so what I want to see, or what I want to make sure that they don't do, is I want to make sure that they don't push together, the IS-3 and the JPE. And so we see that the JPE continued east on this G line, right? And we know that the IS-3 is here, but the IS-3 hasn't been lit for a while. So the IS-3 is probably making his way around one way or another to get to where the JPE is at. The JPE crossed here, but I did not get lit. So I know that I can push this guy. So this guy may or may not have Sixth Sense, or he may or may not have been paying attention. But at this point, I see that at least initially he wasn't turning around, so I want to push him. So even if he was turning around, I want to push him because I know that he's relatively ISO'd from the IS-3. And then, so I spot the IS-3 as I'm coming around here. So the IS-3 did come around through this side, but they're still relatively far apart from each other, right? And the JPE is out in the open. There's a building right here. The only real threat to me is artillery. So I don't need to stop here and shoot the JPE. I can get to cover.
It's a trap!
Right, take my time and make sure that I take down the JPE. And then now I know that I have two shots in my clip. I'm either one high roll or just two pens away from killing the IS-3. So I don't need to reload quite yet, but I don't want to... The danger of playing this position is that if the artillery has shifted around to the sides, they can get shots to the backside of this, at least for a splash. So I just want to let my spot drop if I can, and then I want to push this IS-3 because I don't want to give them an opportunity to pin me in where I'm at. So I want to push forward and just get this IS-3. And as I'm pushing up here, I think we find another tank. Right, and then this is a similar situation where if they move their arty to the west, like to this line, this side of the building is vulnerable. If they push the arty to the east, though, this side of the building is not super vulnerable. So I want to be on this side of the building as opposed to this side. And so we see their 40-43 comes around over here. And the thing about like buildings and things like that is that when arties like this, you don't want to sit out in the open. You want to go someplace where you can shoot through an area where because the arty's HE shell can't go through the wall. So it's going to take him a little bit. And he snapshots it a little bit too much anyways. And then so now I have one shell. So I can try to high roll the IS-3 or I can wait. Right, and so waiting, I know they're down to one artillery. He may be on the west, he may be on the east, who knows, it's not that big of a deal. But I can wait and hold this shell and see what the IS-3 does. Is he going to be aggressive or is he not going to be aggressive? If he's aggressive, right, then we take our shot, try to get a track on him and squirrel away. If he's not, then we can sort of wait. And their IS-3 looks to be holding in this position here. So I want to get close here and make sure that I can't get shot from that side. And I'm just watching and waiting to see what this IS-3 does. And I'm going back and forth here because eventually I'm going to push around on one side. I just want the arty to have to sort of guess. And if we can bait an arty shot, more the better. And then now I'm loaded, right? And so what I want to be able to do is take this IS-3, high roll or not. And so we have to sort of play the odds, right? So I know that the IS-3 can't kill me, but I know that artillery can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push to this area right here where I'm relatively arty safe. And if I get shot by the IS-3, so be it. Right? And so we don't high roll him, which is good, which is fine. And then now we're reasonably safe from artillery from sort of this midpoint to the east, but we're not that safe over here. But it's a calculated risk. And the arty takes a shot that lands back there. And so based upon where that shell shot landed, it suggested that he's someplace in the middle. But at this point, I have two shells, and so it doesn't really matter. And I can take anything from this arty other than a direct pen. So we'll see what happens.
It's a trap!
Unfortunately, that shell goes a little low. And so I'm just going to go ahead and reload here, just because I don't want to chance it. I want to have more than one shell so that if I do a 0 damage track or something. And I know that he fired back here, so I know that he's not going to be reloaded yet. I just want to see if he's on this corner or not. And he still is. He'll be reloaded before I am. He'll probably be reloaded in another 5 seconds or so. And so I don't necessarily need to push him right there. Right? So I just wanted to look to proxy, and where I have the advantage against an artillery is playing corners, because he can't really push corners. And so what he actually wants to do is not play corners, not play someplace where you can proxy him. And then so I'm looking at this wall, this corner right here, and this is a rather straight corner, and I'll show you what I mean by a non-straight corner when we go to the other side. But this isn't very good for me because I have a big fat head and a big tank, so he can potentially pen me there. So I'm not super concerned about that, and I know I have 3 minutes left in the game, and I know that he's not gonna be able to get any place that's super. He's not going to be able to like run away from me or anything like that. So I'm just going to back up because I don't really know this terrain that well. I'm going to back up and go look at the terrain on the other side, and that's all that I really need to do at this point. There's no need for me to rush. I just need to make sure that I secure this kill. So I'm just going to go around, and so what he's probably going to do is sit in this position and face due east so that he can cover either side with a snapshot. And if I wanted to flip a coin, I could just YOLO in there from one side or the other, right? Just wait for my spot to drop here, YOLO in from one side or the other, and force him to make a snapshot. But I don't necessarily think that you need to do that in this situation, because I know that I can play a corner better than an artillery. And so I go over here and I see that this corner is not what I would call an even square corner. And what I mean by that is, so there's a little cutout in this right here. And so my tank is tall enough that I can actually shoot over this cutout, and it's going to make it difficult for him to shoot. It's actually a really narrow shot. And so see where he's aiming? He's actually aiming on this corner right there. because he is expecting me to stick my tank around over. But what I'm actually going to do is just stick my turret over this little break right here to shoot the corner of his tank. And this is where you have an advantage against in artillery, especially in tanks that are much smaller profile. The 50B has a rather huge profile, so it's easier to shoot when you try to corner against people. But in this particular case, you'll notice that right, we're going to get a pretty good shot here. And so he's starting to modify his aim a little bit, right? He's still aimed out here though, but he's aimed a little bit higher. And then so all I'm going to do here, right? See how this is the corner. I can see the corner of his tank. So he has a very slim shot, and he's actually gonna hit his shot. So see that this is, I actually don't even need to move further back than this. I could shoot him right now. I kind of scroll a little bit too far back. And then what we're going to see is that it's pretty easy for me to get this shot. Unfortunately, we don't get a we don't get a decent roll on that, so we don't actually one-shot him. And so he gets that snapshot, and what I was saying is that's actually a really difficult shot, because he has to shoot it. Hang on, let me show you when the flare goes down. That's actually a really difficult shot, because look at where that trace goes through. It goes just above that little wall right there, but it's still just barely low enough where it hits my tank. So that's a very difficult shot that he hits, but still doesn't pen, so it doesn't matter, right? And so even though we weren't able to play very aggressively early on in this game, right, because we tried to play this east area over here, I made sure that I didn't throw away my tank. I tried to save these guys as much as possible. I tried to save the M103. I tried to save the PTA, but I didn't stick around to get swarmed once those guys went down, right? That 30B tried to get to our back door, the WZ and the T30 tried to push through, the WZ-120 tried to push through the front side. The T-30 had pushed south on the 7-8 line once we were on our way out, right? So I didn't allow myself to get stuck there. I actually went and I protected the backside of our team over here, forced them to try to drive across to catch up to you. And we were able to clip out the WZ-120. The 30B didn't push across fast enough, so we were able to clip out I'm sorry, it wasn't a 30B, it was a 30 prototype. And so we were able to clip that guy out as well. If those guys came through as one, or if they came through with the T-30, right, they were able to crush that side. But because they came through one at a time, especially against a clip tank, that's not to your advantage. So they didn't play that as well as they could. And then it's a situation when there were only those 3 tanks and the 2 already left, is to identify where the weakness is. And the weakness was not to push the JPE, but actually to go back around to the T-30. So there's a number of important things that I think, even though we weren't as aggressive as we would have liked in the early game, we stayed alive, and we basically, once we identified that side was lost, we did as much as we could to help it, and then we just left and made it so that we could protect the backside of our tanks over here. And that's what really allowed us to win. It wasn't, us being able to beat 5 tanks, because that's really, in a sense, luck, because if they clustered together closely enough, especially against a clip tank, there's nothing that I can do, because there's no way that I can clip them out efficiently without taking return fire if they're close enough together. But because they were separated enough, right, we had to fight the T-30, and then we had to fight the JPE, and then we had to fight the IS-3, and then because it's 1 and 1 and 1 and 1, that makes it much easier. But that, again, a lot of that is luck. But what I wanted to highlight was the most important part of this match wasn't the 1v5. The most important part of the match was not dying on this side and being able to fall back, recognize and fall back to a position where you could then cover the backside of your base, which prevents them from coming around behind your guys, prevents them from putting on cap pressure. Our guys were fairly oblivious to what was going on behind them, and so it's something that's that I think is really important, if you can recognize it, and especially if you have a tank that's fast enough to get out. And this happens a lot, like not just with the 50B, but with like bat chats and other mediums and things like that. Do what you can, make sure you try to get out, make sure you have an exit plan. You know, that once that E50 went down, that M103 was kind of boned because he doesn't have the speed to get away. But that PTA could have very easily bailed out and gotten out. And he could have sat back here doing the same thing, helping the M103 until the M103 went down. And then once the M103 went down, the PTA could have just bailed, which was exactly what I did, right? I basically stuck around until the M103 went down, and then I bailed. Because there wasn't anything that I was going to be able to do to help. And so identifying those types of situations will help you live longer. And it's not abandoning your team when they still have a chance, right? It's abandoning once they're for sure dead, right? That M103 died before I tried to leave, because I knew that I had the speed to get away. I knew that if I left once that M103 died, that people weren't going to be able to catch me. And so that's really what you're looking for there. And so if we look at the stats, there's a lot of medals, but again, I don't really think that the medals are the point of this particular match. It's really the difference in the match is recognizing the lost side and making sure that you fall back. We were reasonably efficient with our shots. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I don't feel like our team did too poorly per se. For our guys on the west were a little bit too passive, but their team was pretty passive as well on that west side. Their team was reasonably aggressive on the east, which allowed them to have that advantage on the east, but then they sort of lost that advantage when they tried to push through the base a little bit piecemeal. Anyhow, so I hope that's helpful for how you should approach these maps when you're in a reasonably fast tank on a flank that you're fairly certain that you're going to lose. And it's, again, you know, I want to stress, it's not about abandoning your team. You do as much as you possibly can to try to save them, but once it's lost, just bail. Just bail. Use your head. Anyhow, so I hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.